Okay, good morning all. Hopefully you all had a good weekend and a good week, and looking forward to a week ahead of training. So today we're going to cover chapter 6, self-talk of the book. So chapter 6, self-talk of the book we're going to be covering. There's a quote that's struck to mind a while ago that I saw that said that words, they may forget what you said, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. So the idea is what we say can have an impact for decades to come along. So the things you say, even to yourself, to your friends, to your family, to other people, they have a big impact more than you realize. So from this context, it's about choosing our words carefully. What we say to ourselves, our team, can directly affect our performance. We're going to focus on how we communicate to others and ourselves can have a big impact on our performance. And when you think about it, words have power. And take a moment now, guys, to think about some of those inspirational speakers you've heard throughout your career, coaches and anyone you can think of, really teachers, and think about how a word can affect someone. A word can affect because for them, the association of that word might have a deep implication or meaning. So it could be a bit of encouragement, a bit of praise. Someone have self-belief in you. It only takes someone to say one thing can be really powerful. And equally, the other side of it can be detrimental too, because someone can say something negative. And then obviously it has a big impact on you, on your force, the way you think about things. And we talk about positive words. We talk about just even the basics in life. And you take a moment to think, when was the last time someone praised you, and when was the last time you praised someone else? And so the little, thing, well, words can go a long way. Even, thank you, or please, or well done after a game can go a long way. And think about sort of some of the speeches you've sort of been around and during halftime. And I can think of a lot of times that I've been in the dressing room at halftime or at full time or before the game, and there's been some really, really powerful speeches that have been said, the right words. And I'm sure you've all, come across people who say the right things at the right time. And for me, that's the testimony of a really good coach and manager and leader who sometimes, less is more. Not saying anything at all is key too. And you think about it, when someone, think about what it feels like, guys, when someone gives you praise for your performance. And the way you felt different. And I'm not saying praise as in not to pull people up if they have underperformed. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that sometimes you do really well, and praise goes a long way. It builds confidence. It helps us to build from that. So you put 100% in, 110% in the game, and irrespective of the result, sometimes the results don't go the way you want to go. You play really, really well, but it sort of goes a long way. I think constructive points are key. I think what you did well, when the emotion clears. After a game, we've all been really emotional and said things, and that's what we've got to be mindful, guys, after the game, when the emotions are running high, to leave things for a bit, because sometimes things are said. And once you say something, it's hard to take it back. And I'm sure you've been in situations where someone said something and think of the way you felt. If there's been a negative thing that they said, and there's a difference. I'm not saying sort of go around, be positive all the time, because that's not the case. It's about, choosing our words carefully. There's some research done by Seligman, and there was analysis that in sports, that the more optimistic teams created positive synergy and performed better than pessimistic ones. So it's been proven that the more positive you are, the better chance you've got. And I'm not saying positive in terms of, all is great when you need to improve. And sometimes things have to be said, guys. They have to be said. I'm saying positive as in, let's keep everything positive. It's like when I've gone into teams that have been battling relegation, they've asked me to come in and help them out. It's about positive from everyone, from the person who sits at the front desk, to the kit person, to the cleaners, to the grounds people to the coach, everyone sort of keep positive. I want that positive energy, and that's the academy for me. We all have, tough days, bad days, and I can fully appreciate that. You're not going to come into the academy every day. Life is great and wonderful. There's times you've got stuff going on in school, college, work, home, and that's okay. But what I'm saying that as an academy, we create a positive atmosphere. A positive atmosphere. If you see the players playing for a team, or one player goes on to make it and does really well, you get behind that player because that could be you next time. And that's what the academy do really well. And I think it's really important that, irrespective of which graduate you see from the academy playing, if they're playing in Europe, they're playing in the A League, they know where they're playing, what level they're playing, and you get behind them. Obviously, if they're playing against you on the weekend, it's a different story, during the game, but before and after, after the game, all is good in the world. You wish people well. But that's the whole thing. A positive energy is key. A positive thought is better than a negative one. It gives you a better chance in terms of, and next week we cover proximity. I'm going to talk about why it's important to have people around you who provide that energy to lift you. So of all the people you communicate with on a daily basis, the most important person you'll communicate is to yourself. And you might think, wow, what's he talking about? Communicate to yourself. Well, we do communicate to ourselves. We have a dialogue. The research suggests different research, and I'll go into that, how often we dialogue. But the bottom line is we're generally, guys, our own worst critic. No one will speak to yourself worse than what you speak to yourself, and we've all been there. And that has a big impact on us, because you think about it, you keep saying negative stuff to yourself, it builds up. So in research, we all carry in a dialogue that has a big influence on how we think and feel. It's been established by psychologists and neuroscience that we maintain an ongoing dialogue of self-talk between 150 to 300 words per minute. This works out to about 45,000, 51,000 words a day. Some researchers will say otherwise, but give or take, you get the gist of it. There's a lot of communication going on. And most of it's harmless, guys. Most of it's like, okay, I need to stop off to get some milk, or wonder what's on TV, or what I'm eating this evening, and just sort of idle, moments. But we do have negative talk too. And that's the danger. The danger is of inner dialogue in the context of sports is when it takes on a negative undertone related to participation of the coach or athlete. For example, I'm not good enough, I'm useless, I mess things up, I can't handle the pressure, we always lose on penalties, I haven't got natural ability. And I can tell you now, guys, I've been in sport for a long time and football for a long time. I can think of all these that an athlete will have said to themselves, and sometimes it sort of creeps in. You miss a goal, an easy goal, you pick up a yellow card, or someone gets around you, and all of a sudden we start catastrophizing. That's the danger. Even one time someone told me that there was a coach, I don't know, I'm going off what I heard at a conference here, but I'm not going to name the coach out of respect, but apparently he said that when his team went to penalties, that they always lose on penalties. I can't believe it. This is before the penalty shootout. He was almost resigning himself. Now, obviously, this was what I was told at the conference. I don't know if it's fact or not, but the team in question did have a poor return in penalties, so it didn't really surprise me. The point being is that if you resign yourself before you've done it, then you're going to minimize your chances, And sometimes these sort of voices that we've heard before, someone tells you you're never going to make it, or you hear on the radio, you can't handle the pressure. Fans say, oh, this player can't handle the pressure. And I've heard it before. I've heard on sort of radio, players that I worked with in the past, fans say things. And I see the player in training is a whole different player than what the fans see on the weekend. sometimes I've even been tempted to sort of want to call in and say, well, actually, the player I see, but then that's people are entitled to their opinion, and it's the way it is. That's the way they see it. They see what goes on the weekend. And that's the sort of thing. These things go on. Natural ability, you've got to be careful. You've got to be really headstrong. When I did a show years ago, someone asked me my opinion, because I'm a mental skills coach as well as performance coach, about a particular tennis player. They said, what do you think? Because this player had a tendency to lose the big tournaments. And I said, well, I don't know. First, I don't know the player. But what I will say, without knowing the player, you don't get that far by fluking it. So, given time, I'm sure they'll do well. And they did end up doing well. And obviously, the point I'm trying to make there is that we can have interpretation. So I generally don't sort of comment on people that I don't know what the situation is, because we just don't know. So the inner dialogue is negative reinforcement created by habitual negative self-talk. And it starts creating beliefs. So if you say it often to yourself, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And what that means is that if you tell yourself you're no good, you can't handle pressure, if you tell yourself over and over again, then it snowballs, guys. And I'm going to teach you tonight to break that cycle. Tonight is the stepping stone for you to break the cycle, if that's what's going on in your mind. Because these things, they sort of, I'm not doing good enough. When players say to me, I'm not doing good enough, I say to them, well, okay, what's good enough? What is it you want to do? What's your benchmark? To sort of open things up a bit. But the point here is that, you say something often to yourself, I'm never going to learn to kick left foot. I'm never going to be able to do this. Then you say it often enough, you'll believe it. And then you'll find evidence to back it up. So you have to be careful. And you've got to be careful. Sometimes people say, well, he's never going to make it. She's never going to make it at that level. And then you internalize that. And then you start telling yourself that. And once you tell yourself that often enough, and then you have a bad game, or the trial doesn't go well, you miss the target, and you think, maybe that person was right what they said. And it becomes your own voice then. And you've got to break it, because in this game, it's about giving yourself the best possible chance to succeed. And this might come words from parents, from family, partners, teachers, coaches, teammates, fans, friends, and they get buried in our brain. Sometimes they mean well. I'm not saying that people don't mean well all the time. They might mean well, but they might see the world different to you. They might have a different opinion, and they're entitled to it. You've got to just guard yourself. If a teacher says you can't do this, I'm not even going to teachers. I'm a lecturer myself, and I've been a teacher before, so I know it's not easy, and not all teachers that way. But some teachers will tell you, you'll never do this. But that's their frame of reference. Some coaches will say it. They release players. Plenty of coaches release players. I can think of loads of players, guys, loads of players who've been released, who've gone on to make it. It's just an opinion. And these aren't coaches, by the way, that have no experience. These are experienced coaches that release players sometimes. And we've all been there. It's just the way you see it at the time. Okay? The way you see it at the time is the key. Teammates sometimes. So all these things, happen. Sometimes people do have negative intentions for you. They do, they don't want you to do well. I don't know why there's people like that out there, but they're out there, and you've got to be careful of them too, because they'll put things into your head. And you've got to guard yourself. Not just in football, that's in life in general. They just, maybe because they can't do it themselves, but they don't believe in themselves. They want to bring you down. I don't know what the answer is, but you've got to be careful. I'll touch on that next week. People who say you can't do something. It's almost like they'll will you on to sort of, when it's just easier for them to focus on their own life and do the best they can for themselves, they use their energy to try and to worry about what you're doing. But they're sort of things that go for the comments. If you hear negative comments too often, you begin to believe them. And take a moment to think for a moment, guys, your own inner dialogue. What goes through your mind. Probably, driving in the training this morning, and you're You're thinking, oh no, I'm working hard. Will I make it? Am I good enough? Or going into a game, my performance, all these little things that go through your mind. So the researchers say positive comments to negative should be 5-to-1 for a relationship to be healthy and survive. So for these reasons, it's important not to let others put you down and not put yourself down. So what that means, even if you're in a friendship and the person's 5, if they're negative 1 time out of 5, then it starts breaking down. You don't like being around people who are negative, and the research suggests it takes 5 positives to negotiate a negative. And that's why it's really important for coaches to sort of redress the balance, because that's why I see some of those coaches lose the dressing room. They lose the dressing room because they're so negative. Even some coaches, you'll see them on a press conference. And I've told managers before, I said in the press conference, the last thing you do is criticize the players in the press conference. Do it behind the closed door if you need to do it, but never do it in the open, because you're going to break their relationship down. They won't play for you, and you shouldn't do it anyway, because the bottom line is that you rectify the situation, going forward. So that's the sort of thing to think about there, which is key. So you can shape your ability to perform in sports and influence your attitude and behaviour towards your participation and how you respond to situations in a match, such as whether you have confidence to express yourself during a game or to attempt new skill. That's why I encourage you to sort of, go at it, go after it, get yourself on the front foot. If you lose the ball or the player, takes possession off you, and your job is to sort of, just keep going, keep at it, keep hanging in there, keep your head up. Language is influential. It will increase your stress levels, limit your potential, and influence your outlook on the experience. I'm going to touch on that shortly. Inevitably, every coach will hunger for the right words when trying to communicate with his team or her team, whether the situation is before a big game or loss, overcoming adversity, articulating the right idea of words important for dry success. So we've all been there before a game. We've all been there halftime when we're getting beaten or we're winning. We've all been there at full time. We've lost or adversity, if someone gets injured or someone gets released. There are difficult conversations to be had in sport, guys, especially football. There's some very difficult conversations you have, because the game brings its own pressures. The higher up you go, you've got to make decisions about players. Do we take them on? Do we sign them? You wish you could sign everybody, but you can't, I'm afraid. There's only so many places. Before a game, you've got a big game coming up, big cup game coming up. It's your only chance. You might not get a chance like that again. And you're trying to find the right things to say. And that's why it's really important to sort of think, okay, what outcome is going to be achieved by me saying, we all say stuff, outburst, emotionally, but we really want to make sure we focus, which is key. There's always a need for saying the right things at the right time. Like I said before, if you've been told by a teammate someone in your team is useless, for example, you perceive them differently. Okay, so I remember one time I was helping out this team to survive relegation, and I wanted to know about the players. I asked the coaches about the players, to tell me a bit about that. And to be fair, on the whole, they were pretty positive. He can do this and he's that, but there were some negative things, and that would influence, obviously, the way I perceive the person. And that's what happens. If you join a new team and someone tells you about someone, it'll change your perception. And it can be done to you as well. You start to think, about these things. So that's why language can influence the situation. Vocabulary. If you tell yourself, I'll never be good at this, I don't deserve it, stupid, I can't do this is not for me, I don't deserve it, it's more likely to experience defeat or disappointment. Okay, we've all been there in situations, we've been told things. I know I have plenty of times, and I'm not in the business of having to prove anybody. It doesn't really bother me in that respect. But the point being is that you know, you prove it to yourself. That's the key. But you've got to be careful because the subconscious mind takes that on board. Because you start thinking, if I can't do this, why even try? So I try and be realistic about life in the sense that, okay, you guys have got talent or you wouldn't be here. You got all the right attributes in the sense that desire, and you've got a good platform. But I'm not naive enough to think that football's easy. I've been in the business for a long time. I said last week, if I had my choice, you know, throughout my career, there's plenty of players I can think of, including yourselves, that'd be nice to see you do and play where you want to play, the level you want to. You deserve it on hard work and dedication. But I know football, you know, can be difficult in the sense it can be a cruel business, and you know, always the best people make it for various reasons, or maybe you might fall short. But the idea I have with my players is to be honest and open and genuine. Just say, just do everything you can. Leave nothing in the tank. You might be disappointed if you don't get to where you want to get to, but you'll look back in life when you get older and think, well, I can sleep easy. I'm good. I've given it everything, you know, and maybe it wasn't meant to be. But the best chance you've got is these things that we sort of talk about, at least mentally, to help you, give you the best possible chance. So I'll give you an example before we do a couple of exercises. Years ago, when I was living some coach training coaches, and some of the coaches would stand at the touchline and shout at the players, don't lose the ball, don't miss the target. And inevitably, that would be exactly what happens. The negativity would ruff off the players, they'd lose the ball and miss the target. You know, you say don't do something, then the picture goes in your head. So if you tell the player don't foul, then you put that into the referee's mind as well. You know, don't lose the ball, don't miss the target. Then it goes through their head. So I spoke to the players and the coaches and said, you know, let's take a list of phrases like that and change them. You know, don't miss the target, hit the target, don't lose the ball, keep possession. And that goes for you as players, and you play, and you can practice this morning. If the player, you're working with, you know, 2v2, 4v4, 11v11, when you're playing, then you're giving an instruction, loud and clear, what you want them to do. You know, keep possession, hold it up, hit the target. These things make a huge difference, guys. Unless, obviously, you're in a situation. I'll be truthful. There's one time that we were in, I've done it once, I've done it, you know, well, I was in the penalty shoot. Even an example in the penalty shoot at one time was a cup. It was a cup game in a penalty shootout. We took the team to penalties, and before a couple of their players took a penalty, I found myself strolling across and said, "Don't miss the target." So I probably shouldn't be telling you, but these things happen in sports, and that's just the way it is. And I'm not saying that they missed the target down to me. That might have missed anyway. We won that shootout. There's been times I've said that and they've scored, but you know, it's worth putting into their head. They're about to take the penalty. You know, don't miss it. Don't skyrocket over the bar type thing. That's just the way it is. And if people aren't happy with people say to me sometimes, you know, what we do in sport, you know, within the rules of the game. But you know, we play to win, guys. That's what it's all about. You know, I want you to have that winning mentality, not where you're going in there and you know, doing silly challenges and injuring players and sort of doing, you know, things outside the rules of the game. I want you to build that winning instinct, that winning mentality, that real, all these top sports people have. And when you have the winning mentality, guys, I'll tell you something, this is true. When you're a winner, not everyone's gonna be like you, you know? Not everyone likes you to have that winning mindset. People like it sometimes when you sort of have that mindset where it's convenient to them, you know, become the happy to lose But when you roll your sleeves up, sometimes people sort of, they get agitated. But that's the way it is. And any top sports person is going to have their critics and people who don't like them, whatever. And that's fine. You live with that. So the key thing is there, and I'll teach you the exercise shortly that you do. And this you can go back over, guys, and do. You can do in the book. You can sort of go back over the video. But think about things that you say to yourself. Think about how you would describe, if someone asked you, now think about this for a moment, because this is really important. This is really, really important, because if a coach, and a manager will do this, a coach is going to ask you this, when you go on trial, because you know that you will go on trial at some point, or the team you're at now, or maybe you go to a different team, they might ask you, well, describe your ability to participate. Okay, how would you describe yourself as a footballer? Think about how you would describe yourself as a footballer. Do you feel confident saying your ability? Now, if a manager, you put yourself in their shoes, guys. If you're a manager, think about what you would want from the player, how you want the player to speak. Would you want the player to say, well, I'm okay, I have the occasional good game? No, you don't want that. You want someone firm. I can do this. If you sign me, I will bring you pace, energy, crossing ability, bum crunching tackler. I can, as a keeper, I come out for the ball and have a presence, distribution. So I want you to sort of, be on that front foot so they believe in you. Okay, so you've got to be comfortable. And that's what I want you to work on, how you promote yourself. And how you promote yourself to somebody else is what goes on your mind. And people, some half-baked, yeah, I'm okay. Get on the front foot is what I'm all about. That's the sort of key, to be confident saying that, to be confident. I'm not saying arrogant. I'm saying confident in your ability that you can do. Confident in your ability. Isn't arrogance. If you're a coach too, if you're a coach as well, if you work hard, and you can sort of promote yourself. This is what I can do. And that's the sort of key. And analyze what you say, how you analyze yourself. Think about how you would describe yourself, because that might need to change. If you're sort of, doing it in a way that, okay, well, I'm okay. And, I play okay. And, so you really want to sort of have an impact and build a few sentences, guys. Be ready for that. If you go on trial, be ready for that, because that's a big impression. When you go in the dressing room, or when you do, you leave an impression. They want to see that. That's what the coach wants to see, manager wants to see. Someone who's sort of on that front foot. And I'll give you an example. One of my clients had a list of 50 negative statements he was saying to himself over and over again. So driving the training, at one point, he was going through a difficult period. I hate the team. I'm too useless to find a better team. And this is true. This is what he was saying in his mind. And every time a mistake, he'd call himself, moron, an idiot, good for nothing, all these things. Even when he was playing a match, he would find himself saying it. He's out of my league. He got into a spiral, a bad spiral, which is not good. So I asked my client, how important is it for you to see in football? And he goes, it's all I ever wanted to do. And I said, when was the first time you dreamed to be a footballer? And he said, from 4 years of age. And I said to him, if you were coaching a 4-year-old had a dream of being a footballer, would you call the child those negative things? He said, no, of course I wouldn't. I wouldn't do that. And that's what I said to him. Think about yourself when you're calling yourself these things. If you tell somebody else these things that so some of these things we find acceptable to say ourselves, we wouldn't say to somebody else. We know the impact we'll have in a relationship. The most important relationship you'll have is the one you've got with yourself. So make positive comments. And here's some techniques you can implement to transform your inner dialogue. These are things you can do. So if you find yourself, some really powerful techniques, if you find yourself saying something negative in your mind, stop your mind midstream and just say stop, the word stop. Okay? And take a breath and be aware of it. Every sort of so often, just do a mind check and see, what am I saying to myself? And if you are finding yourself saying negative things to yourself, just say stop. The rubber band snap is another one. Another therapeutic trick is to walk around the rubber band. And if you find yourself saying something negative, just, if you're kinesthetic as well, just flick it and just bring yourself back. And that's a technique I've used with managers and coaches who do press conferences. I say, okay, if they ask you a question and you get riled up because you don't want to give the impression of the place, you lost the dressing room, just, have a sip of water or just, just get back to baseline. Be aware of it. Be aware. And there's actually been, I've seen experiments where people measure their strength, like strength measurement, to see how strong they are. Like they put their arms out and they say something negative and they try and withstand the pressure. And you see when they say something negative, they find it harder to withstand the pressure than what it would be if they sort of say something positive. I've actually seen people do that, which is really interesting stuff. So what you can do too, turn a negative into a positive. So describe a situation in your own mind. We say something negative, identify the statement and the words, and then replace it with a reframe. Positive. If you call yourself something negative, then stop and think, well, what else could it be? Because sometimes we have a bad game. Sometimes we do things and, emotions run high. And what you need to do then, guys, is turn it around. Okay, turn it around and think, well, okay, how else can I see the situation? What else can I do? Positive language. The main reason we're giving positive instruction, the mind doesn't process negative instruction really well. So it can process it to a point, but not really well, because if someone says, don't think of a purple elephant, the first thing that goes to mind is what, not to do. So when you tell someone, don't lose the ball, don't foul, that's not only putting it into the person's head that you're telling not to do, but also the referee has that too. So they're sort of, key things to think about, to turn it into a positive instruction, which is key. So by using positive instruction, saying what you want rather than what you don't want, you have a powerful effect on the mind. So I mentioned that, don't lose the ball, so don't miss the target. Things like, better phrases are keep possession, hit the target, what you want to do. Now, on a final note, before you break away, and you do what you do best and what you enjoy doing, getting out there and playing the game and, putting it in. Positive self-talk. So this is an exercise you can do in your own time, but this will set the scene. When you think of negative statements that you say to yourself, then what you do is you write them down. So you write down the negative statements, and what you can do during training, what I do with my players, I say to them, okay, during training, if you find yourself saying negative stuff, just jot it down afterwards. Just remind yourself what you've written down. Then afterwards, what you do is the flip side is you sort of replace it with a positive. Okay, with a positive statement. And that's the sort of key. So it could be, you're struggling to learn to kick left foot, and you might say, I couldn't, it was a time I didn't kick right foot, and I learned I can learn left foot. Maybe someone says you're not going to make it, you're not good enough. Well, you can tell yourself that the level you are now is a higher level. Why can't you go above and beyond? So, and these are key things. Every player at one point would have played at no level, no matter who they are. So these are things, not just sort of silly comments saying, yeah, I'm great, I'm wonderful, I'm amazing for no reason, but like, rational. Of course I can do it. And they're the key things. If you're negative, turn to a positive, and it will give you a better chance to improve your performance. If you go around beating yourself up all day, then you're not going to give yourself the best chance. And the other thing too, to the performers, your teammates as well, encourage your teammates on the pitch as well. If they sort of miss a target, if they make a mistake, then encourage them. Head up, come on, let's go, let's do it. key things. Encourage each other. The world is hard enough as it is already anyway. You've got plenty of critics, and we're a team. And as a team, we have to be like a family, because there's going to be plenty of people who want to knock us down. They're out there. And I'll mention that, and I've mentioned that before. There's plenty of people out there that want to knock you down. And as a team, we have to live as a team together. And the team is a family, and that's the way you treat your colleagues. You're out there, you play, you represent the academy, you represent yourselves. And the key thing is to be able to sort of encourage and say positive instruction to the person. That's not saying, not make people accountable. All is wonderful and positive in the world, but there's a time and place for that, and how we address that is key. And that's what I'm saying here. Think of negative instructions you might say to your teammates, and then replace them with a positive. If they miss the target, come on, you can do it. Okay, if they're struggling in training and they've got a couple of problems going on in work or at home, come on, I'm with you. I'm on your side. I'm on your team. The last thing you need is your own team. And I'll tell you now, I've seen plenty of teams disintegrate, and you'll have seen them too. Teams that just disintegrate when the dressing room's lost, and then it's no good for anybody. Then it's no good for anybody. Everyone then suffers as a result. So that's the sort of key thing. You can transform the way you perform in sport by using power of words. The more you work at it, the easier it becomes. The impact of changing even one negative to something more positive, completely change your mindset and outlook. Just one thing, like I mentioned earlier, can have a big impact on you for years to come along. And I saw this really good quote one time: watch your thoughts because they become words. They become words. Watch your words, they become actions. Watch your actions, they become habits. Watch your habits, they become character. Watch your character, it becomes your destiny. That's the key. And what that means, guys, is the person you are in training when no one's watching or the crowd's not there, or is the character. That's why I say to you, train as you play. If you go against the wall, you practice, you control, you do it with precision, you do it with care. If you practice free kicks, you go there, if you practice your training, you give everything 110%, because that's what your character is. And that's the sort of key, and you'll bring that into a game. That's the big deal. And it's not just about football, it's about life as well. So it's been a great session, guys. Once again, you've got my details. You need to contact me for anything. I'm always there at hand to help out best I can. And we go again next week. We've got a big session next week, some big sessions coming up. Every session is a big session. The next session that's huge is the session you're going to do next. Take what you will on board. I'm not saying take everything I say on board. You take what's right for you guys, and hopefully, what you take on board can help you. Even if it gives you 1% more than what you had before, then it's job done. So have a great session, guys. A great week, and we go again next week. Well done, guys. Thanks again. Take care.